YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, share the video with anyone that you think might be interested. And for those listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the audio-only platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review. All that stuff helps with the algorithms and getting the podcast out to more and more people. So it's much appreciated. But yeah, let's get into the pod then. Obviously, the big game. We've got a special guest for the occasion. Ed, how you doing, bro? You all right?
Yeah, all good. Pleasure to be here. Putting the record straight for you guys. Giving you a bit of counter perspective. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, Ed was requesting vehemently to be on this pod, obviously, because I think we had quite a bit of banter about Chelsea last week. And yeah, none of our teams managed to beat you. And yeah, you're ahead of all of us in the table. So you're here to set us straight. But yeah, John, how are you doing as well, bro? You all right?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Disappointed with the result, obviously, but I've been very disappointed with our results recently anyway, so it's just par for the course.
Yeah, I was going to say this is becoming a regular occurrence for you on the pod now. We thought you were past all of this business, but Arsenal were back struggling top 4 race, maybe. We'll get into that in a bit. But let's get into the big game of the week. Arsenal versus Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, 1-1. I found it a really interesting game to watch, obviously, as someone who wasn't with any allegiance in the game. Ed, you were at the stadium and watching it live. So we'll go to you first. What did you make of the game, first of all? And do you think either team deserved more than a draw?
Yeah, I was at the game. In the build-up to the game, we were quite confident, of recent form against Arsenal. We felt like this was the time we could go out and put pressure on them and get a win. They've had a hard run of fixtures coming into the game. Not been great away in the league, so we thought we could really push them. The feeling in the stadium was we were probably slightly the better team, but it was a very close game overall. Sat in the shed end, about 10 yards from where Malo Gusto had that header in the first half. Oh my God, I don't know how he missed it. It looked harder to miss than to score. But overall, really good, entertaining game. Both sets of fans, the Ashburton Army were loud for about 10 minutes after they scored. And Chelsea fans were good. There's a good feeling around Stamford Bridge. So it was a great game. It really was a good game.
Yeah, no, I from watching it, obviously we all watched it in different places. I watched that from my sofa at home here in London. John's watched it in Beijing. You were in the stadium. I've watched some content creation from both Arsenal and Chelsea fans, and it's pretty split. Like the game, actually. I think a lot of Arsenal fans thought that they slightly edged it, or it was a worthy draw, and I feel like a lot of Chelsea fans have said the same on their side. I think the stats bore out 50-50, I think almost equal for possession, and Chelsea had a few more shots. But to memory, I know a lot of them were offside, but it felt like Arsenal had the bigger chances that they missed. But it seemed like a really polarizing game. So, John, what did you make of it, first of all? Do you agree with Ed, or do you think you guys edged it?
I think that we edged it just on big chances, but it's kind of like it's like boxing, where you watch a fight, and depending on how you're scoring it or looking at the fight, you might kind of swing one round to one or the other, and at the end of it, if it comes out to a draw, I don't think anyone can really argue. Or if it comes out to a Chelsea win or an Arsenal win, again, I don't think anyone can really say they dominated the game. And I think, generally speaking, it was a really even game between the two of us, which pains me to say, but Chelsea played decently well, and we, again, were just creatively shocking.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so I guess I'm the deciding vote then, since you both kind of said you feel like you edged it each. I don't know, maybe I'm being swayed by the big chances, but I felt like Chelsea looked more dangerous. But if you take away that Gusto header, I can't really remember too much else that kind of... I know, was it Madueke that hit the bar early on, or I can't remember. So I feel like someone hit Fofana, I think, hit the bar early, didn't he? So apart from those little chances, I can't really remember. And then I feel like the Arsenal big chances were all ruled offside. So I don't know. I actually think a fair result is a draw. I don't know if anyone edged it. I feel like you probably just would feel like that watching it from your own perspective. So I think that's one way you'd probably come out with a draw. and you're not too angry. Well, Ed, that's a good question. Were you upset with the draw? Like in terms of your like aspirations for the season, when the whistle blew, were you like upset with that 1-1 draw? Did you hope for more, or were you quite satisfied with the result?
Um, it was hard to be upset with the last kick of the game was Trossard taking that assist away from Kai Havertz. That was seeing that at the last kick of the game was enough to make us happy with the draw, I think. Yeah, I think the draw was a fair result. I think Arsenal had a lot of the bigger chances towards the end of the game after they scored. So coming away from the game, you kind of felt like a draw was a good result in that perspective. In terms of aspirations for the season, yeah, it keeps us in third. But it's very tight up there. There's a lot to do. A draw keeps us there, but there's a lot of big games to come. What is it? 4 points from
Yeah.
third to wherever United are. Where are you guys?
Wherever United are, God.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's only 4
absolutely in the
points,
mud.
right?
It's true though. It is only 4 points after the United result and your draw. I was looking at the table and I was like, this is mad because Tottenham obviously lost at home to Ipswich as well, and the results just went really funky. Obviously, Forest lost at home to Newcastle, so it's kind of like the results kind of went to just condense the whole middle part of the table, and Tottenham are 3 points off top four. We're still 4 points off, I think, or 5 points off. So it's mad actually when you think about it. From City, it's only City and Liverpool really that are comfy in top four, and yeah, and it's probably that's, I don't know, John. That's a question to you guys now. Do you think a draw has completely wrecked your title hopes, or do you think you're still in it and there's enough time?
I mean, mathematically we're still in it, but I mean, like I said last week, the more we drop points, the further and further away we get. And I mean, we drop points, and Liverpool still again pick up 3 points, right? And City seem to be in the mud, but it looks like Liverpool are going to be really the team to beat for this year. So I'm going to be honest with you. I think the title race is over for us at least. I think City can always go on a run of like 20 odd games unbeaten or whatever else. It's going to be much harder for them to do that without Rodri this year. So even they look a bit sticky. So I really think it's Liverpool's to lose. And I think for Arsenal, man, I would just be happy if we get bloody second at this point, because we're looking very shoddy. Like creatively and clinically, we are poor. And we have to be good at one of those two things. Like last year, we weren't always clinical. The year before, we weren't always clinical. Although Saka and Martinelli definitely did their bit there, but this season we're neither clinical nor creative, right? Like you mentioned Trossard, he's probably our most clinical player. Last year, if that was him on the ball, he's probably scoring it, right? He's coming on late and scoring it. And this year, he's not even being clinical, and he's our most clinical player. And then obviously you got Havertz, who does Havertz things, and he's not going to be the most clinical player. Martinelli's not very clinical recently either. So if we can't do anything creatively and we're not clinical to finish our chances, I don't think we deserve to win the title.
I agree, man. There's definitely something going on, and I understand you've had injuries. I mean, like Ed will remember last season for Chelsea. I remember last season for United where we had so many injuries and it was an absolute nightmare. So it can definitely derail your season. But it definitely does feel like, we talked about it a bit last week, Arteta's definitely reverted to like moving, like he's testing things out too much, moving players out of position too much. And this was probably the first time in like a month and a half, maybe, or a month, where I felt like people were playing in their actual positions. And even then, I would argue Timber at left back is still not his best position. So like you haven't got the ideal setup in terms of the players in their positions. But you saw the difference. I mean, in my opinion, I think Neto was the best player on the pitch in this game. But on the Arsenal side, Odegaard was probably the player that was. Even though I still think Chelsea did a pretty good job on both Odegaard, and then you guys did a good job on Palmer in terms of stopping the creation. But a few chances for each of them. I still think Odegaard was probably your best player. Like, he was still the one who was going to create something. Obviously, your goal came from that. I know the defending on the Chelsea side was really poor. I wanted to get your opinion, Ed, on that in the stadium, because it looked like, I don't know what happened. Colwell, or is it Colwell played them onside, and then like on the back post, the right back and the centre back just go walkies, and you've got Martinelli and I think Trossard as well, or someone else completely unmarked at the back post. But it was a really nice little ball from Odegaard, and I don't think you would have seen that if you still had him out and you had someone else playing in that 10, because I think it's just been too many moving players around for you guys, and it feels like it's probably already derailed your title hopes as it is, and now you're going to have to go on a run kind of similar to the one that you had at the turn of the year last year to even get anywhere close, I think, which is going to be hard going, because you've still got Anfield to go to. You've got Chelsea obviously now back at Emirates. You've got City at Emirates. You've got still a lot of big games that you've got to go and take 3 points in to even give yourself a chance. And like Ed said at the beginning, your away form I think you were one of the best teams away. Before this little spell of defeats and draws, and suddenly your away form has just completely fallen off the cliff as well. But Ed, quickly on this one, because obviously you're on the same points as Arsenal. And they're still. I know Jonty's kind of said maybe the title charge is over, but some Arsenal fans are still thinking it's on. Do you think you're in this title race, or are you firmly like top 4 is all we're looking for?
Not a chance. Liverpool for me go on and win the league quite comfortably if it stays as it is. City forgot how to play City football. Arsenal, if Arsenal are in the title race, Chelsea are too, and Chelsea aren't in the title race this year. We've got no false pretensions that we'll be there. Top 4 is a big ask for us still, and if we can make top 4 under Maresca in his first season, and go on with a strong run, we should win it. The Europa Conference League, those are a good season for Chelsea with Maresca for the first time.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I think so. We were talking about our last week's podcast. I still think Chelsea attacking, you've just got so many options, man. João Felix didn't even touch the pitch, did he? I can't remember if he came on in subs, but like you've just got so many. Nkunku came on for the last few minutes. Obviously, I've had to do a my bad on Nico Jackson, because even in this game, I felt like he was much improved from last season. And you've just got Mudryk, I'm still not sure about, but anyway, most of your attackers, you've got a lot of firepower, and like for example Neto in this game, I thought he was the best player on the pitch, like I said. So you've got a lot of firepower going forward. But I will say in this game, I was super worried about your defence. But I actually think as a whole, you did pretty decently defensively. Bar obviously Colwell playing Martinelli and whoever that else was at the back post onside. I feel like your defence did all right. Like, do you also agree that your defence is probably the only thing stopping you from being a properly good side?
I think overall this season defensively we've been fairly solid. We conceded one more goal than Arsenal this season, and everyone talks about how defensively strong they are. We lost Thiago Silva in the summer, went back to Brazil, and on the surface that looked like it was going to be a hard task to kind of fill his gap. But Wesley Fofana I thought was really good in the game on Sunday. He was. Carried the ball out of defence a couple of times, really strong. Cucurella, it's not that he had Saka in his pocket, but he definitely limited the chances that Saka created. He was strong against Saka on the one-on-one.
4-man on him.
Yeah, but a lot of times when he was still left exposed against Saka, he was there.
He did well, though.
Saka didn't have much enjoyment in that game, but
Like
I think
gave him a bloody man of the match, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, watching the game back, he had a really good performance. I think Saka was your biggest threat, and to keep him quiet was a big performance from him. So, but I think the goal, Levi Colwell drops when he didn't need to, or the rest of the team didn't drop with him. But Malo Gusto, as good as he is going forward, there's still a few questions coming back into a back 4 shape from kind of being inverted. Leaves that space, as you saw, the 2 players on the back post. But regardless of that, the goalkeeper is the biggest, weakest link in Chelsea's defensive line, and he should be saving that goal every day of the week. Near post, it wasn't. He hit it kind of side foot. It wasn't with loads of power. He should be saving that, keeping a clean sheet, and beating Arsenal 1-0. Yeah, defensively we're good. Cole Palmer came into the game carrying an injury. There were doubts whether he would even start, and it was a quiet game from his standards. Pedro Neto looked good, but he looked much better when he went over onto the right. Madueke came off, and he had some joy on that side. He, attacking for Chelsea is really where to get Chelsea fans excited. We've got so many options there. People are willing to run at defenders and make life difficult for fullbacks in the league.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. You'll notice I didn't mention a certain ex-United attacker that you have, because he's probably the only one that doesn't do what you just said, running at defenders and attacking. Like he'll pass backwards and sideways and stuff like that. And he's but what's happened to him, by the way? Is he sick or something, or has he gone to the mountains again?
I don't know. Yeah, he obviously got 2 assists in his first 2 starts for Chelsea. Looked like he'd shaken the burdens of Erik ten Hag off of him, which I think a lot of players have seen the same thing for United, right? So, but yeah, I don't know. He hasn't featured even in the kind of Mickey Mouse Conference League games. He hasn't had any minutes. So there was talk about him being ill or something, but maybe there's something going on behind the scenes. Maybe not. There's a lot of players to get ahead of in that team.
Yeah, you've got a big squad, to be fair. And that attacking, I mean, like I said earlier, if João Felix is struggling to get in, that player will struggle as well. So it makes a lot of sense. It's interesting, John, because I don't. Obviously, Ed's gonna say that, and he's watching it live in the stadiums and stuff. So maybe there's different perspective. But I think in this game, Chelsea's defense was much better. I agree. Sanchez, he's such an interesting goalie, man, because he does like things like that where he should definitely save it. Like you would expect the top level Premier League goalie to save it, not even like a big six keeper to save that on your near post. But then he makes like a big save from Martinelli early midway through the first half. He had a couple of other moments where he made little saves where you're reminded why he's playing at a top team. But yeah, he's a really interesting goalie. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between him and Onana, to be honest, with their bozo-ness that makes fans kind of just confused by them. But what do you make of Chelsea's defence? Because I know Ed rolled out the one more goal than Arsenal stat to support his argument, but I think Chelsea's defence has definitely been what's held them back from being, maybe even closer to City and Liverpool and being properly in the race. But what do you make of the defensive argument?
No, I think their defence is what holds them back. And I mean, comparing it to Arsenal, who have had bloody 3 red cards and had to play with bare man down all the time, and then the fact that we're having an absolute stinker this season defensively, and that's what you want to compare yourself with, I think you need to aim higher than that. But yeah, I think it will be their kind of Achilles heel, because especially if Lavia, if he can't stay fit, because I know he came off with a kind of like a slight injury as well, because I think Caicedo and him cover up a lot of deficiencies even more in the defence, right? And allow Cucurella and Gusto to go forward when more than a normal right back left back kind of pairing would be able to do. So I think if you see any dips in form in your central midfield as well, or if you have to see Enzo come back, I think your defence will look even worse. But my big thing is that you've got so many defenders, and a lot of them are like prospects, or they were prospects before coming to Chelsea and had been good for their previous teams. So I can't believe that like none of them will come good. I just kind of feel like it could have been a good idea to try and keep someone like Thiago Silva in the team to kind of coach some of these guys and get them maybe playing with a bit more confidence, or playing with like lending some of his experience, because it's an inexperienced kind of central partnership as well. Like if you think of Colwell's not exactly very experienced. Fofana's obviously not massively experienced, coming back from big injuries all the time. Adarabioyo, like Tosin, all of these players, they're all relatively young and or like don't have a lot of experience for big teams. So you combine that with what I think is a very timid goalkeeper in Sanchez, because I think Sanchez has really got like all the tools to be an amazing goalkeeper because he's bloody massive. He's relatively mobile for a guy of that size. He's not shockingly bad with his feet. And I think if he just had a mentality change to him, he could end up being like I think, a top three goalkeeper in this league. But it just seems like mentally his attitude is like he's not strong enough. And you kind of compare him to Onana. I kind of feel like Onana's got the personality maybe to be a leading goalkeeper because of the fact that he's really coming out and trying to command his team. But that, like, Sanchez doesn't. Like, kind of seems like he's just going to let people maybe boss him around. And that's the part. Maybe as like a non-Chelsea fan, I don't pay that much attention. But every single time I kind of see him, he always kind of looks a bit timid and doesn't really feel confident in himself. And I feel like the goalkeeping position is definitely a high confidence position. So, yeah, I feel like their defense and their goalkeeper will be their Achilles heel. And it will be highlighted if you don't see Caicedo and Lavia continue to start and kind of protect them even further.
Yeah, I agree, man. But a couple of questions for you, Ed, because we've been on the pod for a couple of weeks. You know, when we obviously United played Chelsea the week before, and Arsenal obviously played them this week. So we've been talking about Chelsea a lot more than we normally do on the pod. And we've been raving about the Lavia and Caicedo partnership, and basically lauding Maresca's decision to bring Lavia in and drop Enzo. What do you make of it? Because I thought, again, Caicedo low-key may have also been one of your best players as well. He was doing a lot of good work in midfield. Are you happy with that midfield pairing, first of all? And generally, are you quite happy with what the starters look like under Maresca this season?
Yeah, I think we definitely look strongest when we've got Caicedo and Lavia there together in the middle, and Gusto comes in from defence. Caicedo goes around kind of bullying other players, avoiding bookings sometimes, which is great to see. Puts tackles in all over the pitch. He was great on Sunday as well. Dropping Enzo. There's been that stat that went around on Sky Sports about Chelsea win percentage without Enzo and with Enzo. But listen, I still think Enzo's got a lot to offer on a pitch. Obviously, he's a very talented player. But right now, where we're at, that defensive surety with those two in there is a lot more valuable for the team. Lavia looks great on the ball. Yeah, can he stay fit for a whole season? He really looks like a wizard sometimes. What he can do on the pitch, getting out of tight spaces, turning on the ball.
He's got an engine as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, he keeps going. Yeah, it's a shame he had this big injury that we signed him with the injury, and it took him a while to actually get into a Chelsea shirt. I think we saw him for like 2 sub appearances last season or something like that. So to have him back is massive for us. There's a bit of a midfield problem, but there's a bit of a problem all over the pitch. And I think Maresca is doing a good job of saying to the players, look, if you want to get into this side, you need to prove what you can do. No one's position really, maybe Cole Palmer, but no one's position is guaranteed. Go out there and make your point about it. What was your other question, Ant? Sorry?
It was just on Maresca, because I'll be honest with you, it was quite hard. Obviously, most of us are not watching a lot of the Championship last season, right? And Leicester Leicester was probably. I don't know the bookie stats, but I think they were probably favourites to go right back up of all the relegated teams the season before. So he was kind of expected to come up. He came up. There were some Leicester fans that were kind of moaning about it and saying they almost bottled it at the end. So there was a little bit of like unknown with Maresca. Are you like quite happy with what you've seen so far, and do you think he's your guy long term?
Yeah, we're ecstatic with what we've seen so far. There's a good feeling, as I said earlier, around Stamford Bridge now, which we haven't had for a couple of years. Even under Pochettino at the end, there was always that, is he going to go on and win things with Chelsea and the Spurs connection? So Maresca coming in, he's kind of silenced a lot of the noise around the big squad. He's put his ring around his team, allowed big players to go off and train with the reserves or the youth, and in earmarked who's going to play for him week in, week out. I think it helps having the Conference League in the week, playing big teams from Armenia and stuff to come over and have a nice training game midweek. Allows a lot of the lads to kind of get a run around. But I think there'll be problems later in the season as to how he manages it. Excuse me. Players like Nkunku are not going to sit on the bench for the whole season. They're going to want to be involved. Same with João Felix. Looked annoyed that he didn't get on yesterday. So I think there's real good feelings about Maresca. He looks tactically like he knows what he wants to do, and the players buy into it. But I think there will be some problems later on this season as to how he manages the minutes of some of the so-called big names in the side, who probably deserve to get more minutes than they have been at the minute.
Yeah, but I think your point about the Conference League minus the Armenia thing with Noah's Ark FC and all those guys that you're battering 8-0, you're going to be in that realistically probably till near the end, surely, right? Like you said earlier, the aspirations to win it. I haven't seen anyone in that competition that look like they've got half the squad that you have. So I would expect you guys to go deep. So maybe, like you said, that will keep the rotation guys happy for the best part of the season, especially if Maresca actually keeps it like a cup team for that cup competition and the Premier League team. You see some managers when they get near to the end of quarterfinals and on in the cup, they start playing their full strength squad, and then the guys that got them there kind of get shunned. So I guess if he keeps that going, then maybe Felix and Nkunku will be satisfied enough. But yeah, looking and thinking about it, deeper, I think you're right. I think Felix and Nkunku and a few of those guys that are probably too big to just play in the Conference League are going to start kicking off later on in the season. But you never know. You might be hit with suspensions and injuries like Arsenal are getting now later on in the season, and that's hopefully when your squad will really tell. Because I was looking at the squads yesterday, and I was thinking, damn, actually, I mean, it shouldn't be like a surprise because of the money that you spent, but low key, you guys have built, like, everyone's been mocking you for a while. Like people are mocking us right now about kind of wasting the money, but actually, you haven't really, like I said, the attack, you've got a lot of good players in there. I don't think you've really wasted that much, bar probably Mudryk is probably the one where you go, oh, that was a bit dodge. But the rest of them all seem like money well spent, really. And obviously Enzo, and I mean, Caicedo's coming good now, and Enzo's still got that price tag to shake off. But you've got a really good squad. So, yeah, maybe some of us who are predicting you to still being like properly mudded were a bit naive to do that now, because it looks like a lot of those players are coming good. John, so I wanted to ask you quickly about Arteta. This will be a quick one, and it might piss you off straight away. But the Maresca question, I'm gonna flip that to you. How are you feeling under Arteta? Are you tempted to get an Arteta out shirt, or how are you guys feeling at the moment?
I'm definitely not Arteta out or anywhere near it, and anybody that is either a clickbaiting YouTuber that just wants to get views, or is absolutely mental. I honestly, I think it's somewhat to be expected from us. Like I know last season and the season before, like not we got lucky, but we definitely did suffer less than other teams when it came to injuries, when it came to like disciplinary problems, etc. So overall, we can't outrun it forever, right? We're eventually going to get injuries to important players. We're eventually apparently going to get targeted by the PGMOL. Things are going to happen that are going to make it more difficult for us. And I think from my point of view, like I was expecting at the beginning of the season naively that we'd be able to just keep it going and raise the level even more. And if you think about it, like even Liverpool, after a couple of years really trying to fight against City, couldn't sustain it, right? Like they obviously did get over the line at certain points, but like overall they couldn't necessarily sustain it in the league, and they end up having like down years where they've got to rebuild certain things, certain players leave, etc., right? And my big worry is that just we're going to lose key players before we've actually won anything. And that's where I've been worried, right? Like really, we had to win something last season or even the season before to really keep people around. So from my point of view, I'm not worried about Arteta really, but I am worried about the squad and kind of what will happen at the end of the season if we end up coming third or whatever else, right? God forbid we come fourth or something else. So I'm not upset with him necessarily. I do think that there's things that he could have done better, but at the end of the day, like he's not perfect. Even Pep makes mistakes. a lot of City fans have been pissed off at Pep previously about like tinkering too much, doing all kinds of craziness with putting his centre backs at DM and going for essentially no established striker. All of these things that he did previously that kind of made the level seem to have dropped. I would say that Arteta's done similar things this season and even some crazy things last season. More so than anything, really, though, is just behaviour in the transfer window. And I was going to say before we got on, I think this is a great example of a team that wasn't very good last season, had a good transfer window, and is now a much better team this season. And a team that was good last season have a poor transfer window and look quite a lot worse this season. And that's what's going to worry me the most. So, Edu obviously leaving. There's been rumours about how much effect Arteta has on transfers and all this other stuff. I am going to look at the next couple of windows, and that will actually have some sort of sway on how I view Arteta. Because if we've gone, if we go in January and don't go and try and get like a backup winger or something else to try and really push us on, or next summer, if we again go and do like Marino, Sterling-esque signings, and we're not going to go and try and get a marquee striker or a marquee left winger, I am going to look again at Arteta, even depending if it's Rosicky or whoever else is the sporting director. The commonality among all of these last windows will be Arteta, and there is obviously a lot of rumours that he's got a lot of sway at the club and basically gets to decide. And he pushed very heavily for players like Marino and Sterling, particularly Sterling with his previous relationship and so on. So if that is the truth, and then we end up having another stinker in January and another stinker next season, I'm not saying I'm going to be Arteta out, of course not, but I am going to think that a change needs to happen in the team and that he needs to be trusted a bit less. Because obviously if we have two stinkers in a row, or three stinkers in a row in terms of windows, I'm going to think his player ID is maybe not as good as it should be. So I'm not Arteta out, and you won't hear those words out of my mouth unless we have like a Man United-esque season or something like that. But I am judging him. He's not untouchable, if that makes sense.
John,
yeah, I'm going to get you. Go on, Ed.
You can always come over to Chelsea if you're stuck in the transfer window. We can see what we can dig out. Your Marcus Bettinelli can come over to you guys and do a job or something. There's always that option for you guys, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that Chelsea keep that in terms of selling. We mock Chelsea's buying, but Chelsea's selling has been top tier because you basically just sent all your viruses out to other clubs. You chucked Mount for us for 60 million or whatever it was. Who, to be fair, I don't think he's a virus. I think he's a decent player, but he's obviously cursed with injury. So you flogged like an injured horse to us for 60 million, which is not bad. And then you keep giving your scraps to Arsenal, and a few of them. I mean, Havertz. Maybe we've got different opinions on it, but I think that transfers look better now than it did at the time. Jorginho, I think, has turned out to be a pretty handy player for them. But yeah, the Sterling one is the one where I don't know, man. You guys were a bit stinky last season, and Sterling was there. Arsenal were looking a bit stinkier this season, and he's there. So
also, how is it possible that you're paying 50% of his wages, and it still seems like you've come out of that deal better? Like, how bad is this guy?
Yeah, I think it's a bit more than that, right? I feel like we're paying 75, or you're paying 25 or something. It's a crazy deal, but he was stinking out for Chelsea, actually detrimental to the team going forward, through and goal with a clear pass and shooting and missing, blazing free kicks into Rose Edd of the upper tier and stuff like that. So he was poor for Chelsea. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the Sterling deal suits both parties though, because we didn't want to see him play for us. We had better players for the position, and he's obviously on big wages. So to even if we only cover 25% of his wages, that's over the course of the season, a few £1 million or £5 million, whatever it is. And he's not going to make Arsenal any better. I haven't watched him for 2 years, so we can rest easy on that. I just want to touch on Kai Havertz for Arsenal. That one, he's not the forward, not the number 9 for Arsenal to go and win the league. He flipping plays left back for the national team. So, he's not the one to do that. So there's a bit of animosity towards Kai Havertz we touched on before the pod started, but for some reason he thinks he's this big guy at Arsenal and shushing the crowd when he scores an offside goal. But he's not the one for you guys to go on and win the league.
Yeah, that was. I mean, we've got a couple of celebration police things to touch on. That's a good point, Ed. I actually forgot to bring that up. We've got one in the United game as well to talk about. But yeah, Johns, what the hell was going on with that? Like, I was unawares of some sort of beef between Chelsea and Havertz. So were you like quite surprised when he started shushing the crowd, or did you kind of expect him to give a bit of S-housery?
You expect it for the first couple of times that they play each other, and I think he did do it in the first couple of times that we played each other after the transfer. So like I think that was like warranted, because let's be honest, a lot of Chelsea fans were mocking the life out of him after he left, and kind of like basically saying good riddance, and we've got way more money for you than we should have, and so on. And I think obviously the way that you talked about him when he played for your club was mixed as well. Like you weren't all in on him. So for a player who I've heard apparently is a mad confidence player, like he maybe takes that to heart, and then he's kind of got a grudge against you guys as a result. I just think he's not taking it too far. I just think that you guys care less than he does now, which is weird. Usually it's the other way around, and fans hold on to it for longer than the player does. But it almost feels like he's holding on to it for longer than you lot are, and as a result, kind of making himself look a bit not silly, but just like, if you're gonna do it, make sure you actually scored. Like doing it off of an offside goal kind of adds to the whole donkey, like the whole like he's a bit of an oaf type of like aura that he's kind of built or cultivated for himself, right? Is that he's a bit of a kind of big, lazy, kind of clumsy-esque player, and then you go and see him bloody shush an offside goal, and it kind of adds to the bozo-ish aura of him. So overall, I'm happy. Like I'll be honest with you, I'm happy with the transfer. Like I don't think we got like a better deal, and I don't think we got a worse deal. I kind of feel like for that money in this day and age, he's probably kind of on par with that value. Especially if you look at like players like Darwin Núñez and Antony and whoever else have been spent like even more on. I think he's doing a decent job for us. But I do think that Arsenal fans have gone a little heavy on him, and kind of tried to make out like, the Declan Rice thing where we should give you more money for him, which is I think is mad. I think he needs to do way more. He needs to score way more goals to get anywhere near us being like so happy with that transfer as if we got one over on you.
Yeah, I think be careful what you wish for. He scored the biggest goal probably in his career for Chelsea, won the biggest trophy there is, and he goes on as if he was, booed every week when he played in a Chelsea shirt, which wasn't the case. He was a bit of a cult hero. He had his own song at Stamford Bridge. Maybe he reads too much Twitter, because certainly from match-going supporters, he was quite a well-loved player.
It's a weird one. I just didn't when that when people move between clubs and you kind of expect there to be a bit of vim when they come up against their old club. You kind of know it, right? You can kind of feel it and understand it most of the time. But this one, like John says, it's a weird one. It kind of almost feels like Havertz has held on to this, or like created a bit of this, like kind of a bigger issue out of it, like than maybe there is. Like there definitely was a lot of Chelsea fans mocking him when he left, but I feel like that just died down pretty quickly after the transfer had finished, right? Like I didn't see too many Chelsea fans continuing that narrative on and on and on and on and continually sticking it to him. And even last season when you guys played, I don't remember him being booed or anything like that, and by Chelsea fans at all. So it's just a weird one. It's just like he's just probably maybe there's part of him that's more angry at the club for like letting him go as well. Maybe I don't know what went on in the background of that transfer. Maybe there's some dodgy stuff that happened, but yeah, it was a weird one. I'll tell you what though, if he'd have tucked away that last minute chance though, the Chelsea fans would have absolutely lost their mind.
Yeah.
To lose it on the last minute to Havertz, at home, that would be tough. But anyway, let's move on from the Chelsea Arsenal game. We've done a solid 39 minutes on it, so I think we've covered it from all angles. And let's cover a rare United win. So 3-0 at home to Leicester. I'm going to get your opinion, Ed, on United. But before we do, I realised I didn't actually ask you about Arteta and the Arsenal side. Do you feel like Arsenal fans should be more critical on him, or do you feel like they should go down Jonty's route and be more supportive and give him more time?
I think they've got to give him more support and more time. More time seems crazy, right? Because he's taken Arsenal from a side that were like on the peripherals of Champions League to like having 2 consecutive title charges. But yeah, shocked that players get injured and form dip. That's what kind of happens. Yeah, I think Arteta's solid in this position. There can't be any talk about Arteta out. That's crazy talk.
Yeah, I think that's
fans
with agendas, isn't it?
I think that's a certain YouTube channel that thrives off of clickbait content, isn't it? Right? There's no genuine thought amongst the supporter base that should be the right tactic. Yeah, I think the biggest thing, transfer system going forwards. Edu out, can they strengthen the team and make the right decisions in the transfer market to push on and be stronger again next year? But if they're not stronger than they were last season, albeit for injuries or whatever else, then there will be questions asked somewhere along the club. But no, Arteta is the man for Arsenal for the future, or for the short future, let's say. He needs to win a trophy though. He needs to win something.
Yeah, no, I agree. But no, I agree completely. I don't even know if certain fan channels are really shouting for Arteta out, but there are obviously people that I think weren't sold on Arteta at the beginning that have had to like kind of pipe down when things have gone well. That when things go slightly dodgy, are going to obviously start piping up again now, aren't they? And say that they're right all along. But I think you've got to keep. He's still doing a good job, right? Arsenal's still in the top 4 right now, and the expectation is that they push on again and get back up with Liverpool and City, and that's not out of the question completely. They've got big games against all those guys to take points off them, and they can totally do it. That run at the turn of the year showed that they can do it. So I think people need to just try and calm down a little bit on this run, because it's 2 defeats and 2 draws. It could be worse. It could be City. 4 defeats in a row. And most of the City fans that I've seen online and stuff seem pretty chill about the situation. So I think Arsenal should follow suit.